mixing the new music, that stuff, you know?
Yeah.
You sweeten the pot. I like it.
I was playing around with it a little bit.
I came really close to buying a camera. But I didn't. I kind of like that.
But you
I don't know.
didn't.
Yeah. I went to the local Best Buy and it was $30. I was like, I don't think it's worth $30 for him to see me. But I think I'll order one online because I've seen that. I think they have them for like $13.
Yeah, that seems less.
Yeah. I was a math major for a little while.
Yeah, that's true. I forget that about you.
That does seem. You want to hop in? I think it's your turn.
It is my turn. All right, let's get our bearings. We're all set to go?
Yep.
You ready to
Five
rock?
best. I'm ready to rock. Five best.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Five Best with Greg and Jason. Jason is in Michigan. Jason, you want to say hi?
How you doing? Muskegon, Michigan says hi. It's rainy and cold.
Nice. And I am Greg, and I'm in San Antonio, Texas, where it's kind of overcast, but not cold at all.
Okay.
So it's one of those days. Jason, I am. Before we get started on how we do Five Best, which is we just go through our list of favorite things from the last week. If you haven't been listening, we've posted 3 or 4 new ones in the last couple of weeks that are all pretty good.
I think they're getting better and better.
I think they're getting better and better. It's a lot of fun. Like, we like doing it, and I'm getting pretty good feedback from people. So if you have questions, or you're like, you want to correct something we said or something along the way, you can get a hold of us. I think you can do it through the podcast link, but you can also, I'm on Twitter, which is easy. So at Outpostings that's the easiest way to get in touch with me if you have big questions or you want to know. And like we said before, if you subscribe to the podcast, you get the new ones right away, and it makes it easier for other people to find. So if you like it at all, just subscribe it. Even if you don't like it, subscribe. You don't have to listen to it. Just subscribe, right?
Amen. And then is the Outpostings, is that a reference to Resident Aliens?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
I like you, man. Stay true.
It's a little too easy sometimes, but yeah, no. That one, yeah, that's part of the deal. I also thought, like, it's funny because you post things, and I thought, oh, that's clever. But the cleverness of it is usually lost. So
the Oneaters.
What?
Have you seen that? That's that movie, That Thing You Do. You remember they try?
Man, I have not seen that movie since I was
they try they try and do a play on words like the Beatles, you know, because it's spelled like Beatles.
Yeah.
But the Wonders, but with a one, like a O-N-E, and then everybody starts calling them the Oneaters.
That's really random.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so my first one for the week is I wanted to chat about the NCAA championship game on Monday night.
Ooh, that was my number 5.
Oh, perfect. That doesn't happen very often that we have the same thing. Yeah. But that was amazing.
That's a gift to television.
Yeah. It really was. Where were you at when you watched it?
I was at home.
Nice.
Where were you?
I was at a bowling alley with a bunch of college kids. We had our bowling night. And so they were showing it. Like, so they showed it while we were there. And like, when the North Carolina kid, Marcus Page, hit his 3, I was pretty sure that was the end of it. I was like, oh man, there's no. And then because I'm obnoxious like that, somebody was like, hey, do you think Villanova could win? I was like, yeah, they'll come down and hit a shot. And then they did. That was crazy.
It was so crazy.
Can you imagine being that guy in that spot?
I can't, and that's what I love about the. It's just kids. Like, that's so cool that they play it. They put this thing on the national stage, and it's simply, you know, they still have their childlike, you know, love of the game, and it's one of the best things on television. I think is NC, the March Madness. It's really good.
Really, it's so much fun to watch.
It really is. And then I love to root against people that I like, you know, like when
no, I don't know what you mean.
You know, like, because when you were living, you know, because you always root for Green Bay, and when we were living in the same town, I'd always root against Green Bay just because I like you.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. But this was when I was voting for either team. I love people from those towns, you know?
Yeah.
And it brought back memories of when I was living in San Antonio. I talked somebody at First Press into flying me and my interns and Kellen. Remember that? We flew into Raleigh, Durham. We flew out of Boston, but we went to North Carolina and we visited Hannah Robinson. She was an old intern from the Well. And then we went to Villanova, whatever that town is. I don't even know the town.
Philadelphia.
Is it Philadelphia? Yeah, it must be outside. But it's not really in Philadelphia, right? It's right kind of outside.
I think it's Philadelphia area for sure.
Well, then I don't think I even know. Never mind. I don't know anybody at Villanova. I think I knew some. I thought I knew somebody at Villanova, but no. So
there's like 4 or 5 big schools in Philadelphia. So there's Villanova, Temple, Penn.
I wonder what school Haley. I'll have to find out what school.
I don't know.
Yeah, Haley Morgan. It was a Catholic university.
Well, Villanova's Catholic.
Yeah, and the Perrys housed us, and they're all buddies from New Jersey. Anyway,
but
that's a rabbit trail. That's a rabbit trail.
That's a huge rabbit trail.
So turning to find out, I wasn't rooting for Villanova. I'm bad. I'm bummed.
Now it's disappointing.
Yeah, that just retroactively became the worst day of my life.
Sorry, man. I cannot bring myself to root for North Carolina because it's arch rival stuff. So I don't ever root for North Carolina. Although this time, if North Carolina would have won, my son would have won the family bracket, and our friend Allie would have won our college ministry bracket. But because they lost, neither one of them won.
And they all owe me $100.
I wish that was the case. It's not the case though. Crazy. But anyway, so that was a lot of fun, and it's one of those things like when sports are good. Yeah, that's what it is, right? Like at its height, when sports do what they're supposed to do, and there's good competition, and it's close, and somebody like. I think I saw some stuff people talking about. Did North Carolina lose that game or did Villanova win that? It's like, no, it's just they won it. Everybody played great. Everybody hit huge shots. And then Villanova just hit the last one. Yeah. That's a blast.
The one, you don't root for North Carolina, but I need to bring up my favorite basketball player of all time played at North Carolina. And it's not Jordan. Jordan's good and stuff like that. But big game James Worthy, man. Being a Lakers fan.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever they won championships, I think it always came down to either Michael Cooper or big game James Worthy.
Yeah, you're a huge James Worthy fan. I always forget. You love that nickname as much as anything else, I think.
Big game James, yeah. Remember that one guy that didn't speak in our college ministry?
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I called him Big Game James. And
I remember him running over a rock.
I did too. In your church parking lot, like getting stuck or something. That was awesome.
Yeah, that one was funny.
Shout out to Big Game James.
Oh man! All right, well that was my first one. I love the national championship game. Was awesome.
Okay, I'll check that off my 5. So this is going to be a little shorter.
I got 6, so I can just add another one. Go ahead.
You communist. Orphan Black. Have you seen that show?
Yeah, I have seen that show.
And the reason I bring it up, she was the main actress was on. I forget her name. She's Canadian, and she was on Colbert. The Colbert, like Tonight Show or whatever they call that thing these days. Yeah. And I was just super impressed with her interview, and that spurred me on to try the show out. Love it. It's the American BBC, so they like have a little extra nudity, which is I don't condone that or support that. And
but you don't not condone it either.
Yeah. Oh well, I kind of am against it. It's a bummer when. It's a bummer when, because at first I hated nudity in Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
But then I think whoever's behind that show, I don't know any names and stuff, but they use nudity to kind of propel the story. I think that's one of the best things that Game of Thrones uses. I honestly, because like at the beginning it was just kind of gratuitous.
Yeah.
But then it turned over the seasons. It's become to almost mean shame or sin, evil. It's interesting how they have kind of linked those two. Anyway, back to Orphan Black.
Yeah.
that's a phenomenal actress. I
She's
can't.
crazy good. Yeah.
I could
Yeah,
not even.
why don't you quick give the premise for folks who don't have any idea what the show is? It's sort of hard to explain, but
yeah, it's really hard to explain. And what drew me to the show was this woman was being interviewed by Stephen Colbert, and it's about an orphan, and she offhand like said this really deep comment. She said, "It's interesting that they call it the foster system when nothing good is fostered." It was out of the blue, and it was in the middle of joking, like they were just joking and stuff like. But she said this deep and profound statement. I was like, "Wow, that girl's got a head on her shoulders." So then I turned it on, and it's about a girl who's grown up in the foster system, and she's kind of a street kid.
Yeah,
and in the first like 10 minutes, she witnesses someone that looks identical to her jump in front of a train, and so then she assumes the suicide victim's identity and starts living her life. And the best part of the first episode, in my opinion, was when she walks into this room, and she finds out all at once that this woman she's pretending is a police officer. She's on trial for some case that she's been involved in, and she's a witness.
Yep.
And it was just, and everyone, I don't know, I really identified with that scene, because every one of us, myself, I think included. Yeah. Anyway, every one of us. That's kind of the point of that phrase.
That's kind of the point of the phrase.
But doubly everyone else, everyone has had one of those moments where you're put in the front lines, and everybody around you kind of draws back, and you realize you are not equipped in the situation that you're in, and it was that exponentially increased. It was a really cool scene.
How far into the show are you?
I just watched the first episode.
Oh boy. Okay.
So that's it.
Already one of your 5
That's
minutes.
it. Yeah.
It gets crazier from there. But yeah, it has an intensity to it as a show that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's what I kind of miss that, because Alias had that,
Yeah, I forget
20,
that you like Alias.
Alias had it for the first 3 seasons. 24 had it for the first 3 or 4 seasons, but then they lost it. And I think all these other shows kind of try and capture it, but they don't get it. Anyway, but Orphan Black, I think gets it, because, a suicide, and then you meet a Russian character that looks exactly like this main character, and she gets shot like 5 minutes
that one's
before
crazy.
the end of the show. So it's like bookended by 2 people that look identical to the main character dying.
Yeah. And she plays all the characters.
Yeah, she plays all the characters and does all the accents.
It was pretty crazy.
It was really funny because Stephen Colbert, because it came out how she learned accents so well. It's because her parents are fluent in like 3 or 4 languages, like most Canadians, like most other than Americans, and Colbert asks her, do you have a favorite German word? And she says this compound word, and I can't repeat it. I don't remember what it was, but it was a German compound word that means your face is one that makes me want to punch it. And I guess if you look this up online, the number one thing that comes up is Ted Cruz.
Oh boy.
We'll have to find out what that word was.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right, that's a good first one, Jason. I like that one.
All right, hit
my second one. Here's my second one. We talk about this a lot, but I was thinking about it this week in particular. I love having adult friends who used to be college friends. The transition from college into adulthood, but I love having those adult friends now. Like I love it when they become adults. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you mean that, right? That transition is a hard and awkward one in some ways, but it's awesome when it goes well.
Is it that you like the witnessing of the maturation of your friends, or do you like just the
I think that's it. Yeah, and it deepens, like it allows you to have a friendship on a different level than you had it when they were in college. And so I've just got a couple of those friends that I've interacted with a lot this week, where they're people that we knew when they were like 19 or something, and then they finished school and they're part of our program, and then now they're adults and they're back around, and it's really fun to, I don't know, I appreciate that. Like we've talked about this before too, but I used to move all the time, growing up, and this is easily the longest I've ever lived anywhere, and so it's fun to see some of the fruits of that, of being in one place long enough that you get to share adult life with other people, or you get to see them start to have kids, or like there's all that kind of stuff that's really cool. I don't know. I've really, that's been this past week. It's come up a few different times. Our friend Dan is the religion teacher at a Catholic high school in town. And today, Josh, my oldest son, he's hanging out all day there just to see if it's a school he might want to go to. And so it's really cool to have that connection for Dan to kind of work out all the details and be able to talk to him over the phone and get that set up, and see him this morning when I dropped off Josh and all of that. It's just that kind of stuff is, and we've got a bunch of friends like that, but it's just, I was reminded this week how cool it is to have those guys around and to be able to connect and, grab lunch with them and whatever else. It's just fun.
That is so golden. I love that too. And Dan, that kid holds a special place in my heart. I hadn't seen that kid play guitar or speak before I asked him to be a worship leader.
Yeah, you're the worst at that.
No, but I am, or the best. I think that kid money, that's how we found him. I just felt this vibe. Like he came into the well, and I think it was his first Tuesday night at the well.
Yeah.
And the first time I met him, and I said, "Man, you're cooler than anyone else in this room. You gotta get on a guitar. Do you play a guitar?" He said, "Yep." And then the rest is history.
The rest is history.
And you guys launched a ministry together, and that kid, it's so fun to see. The first really one, Kyle was the first was the first of that for me in my life, because I'd been other places and I'd seen youth grow into adults, but he was almost an adult his senior year. Like that was like the fastest. That was the transition happened almost.
He was always sort of an old soul anyway, right? Yeah.
And he was just he was on the cusp of being a great friend, even when he was a student, So that's a good one to bring up. That's a good reason to just pause and say, man, this system that God's kind of created is cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. That's a piece I really enjoy. So
yeah, say hey to Dan for me. That's good.
I will do it, and he'll probably listen. He's one of the people who listens to this podcast. So so it's fun to give him a shout out, because
Big Dan the man,
Emo Dan.
Emo Dan. That's right. I call it. That's funny.
He does not look like Emo Dan anymore.
And he probably never listened to emo music.
I think he did a little bit.
Funny.
Yeah, not as much as you thought he
did. Not as much as Tim Satterfield.
No, certainly not.
That's still my favorite picture of all time of me. That one with me hugging Tim Satterfield from behind. I think you might have even taken that. I love that. Every once in a while, I make that my profile picture, and it just trips people out. It's really funny. My number two. My number two is, since we don't have five, I think it's a two-way tie. Just because after Lent, I've been able to listen to secular music.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that.
My little brother, he sent me a record by a band named Dorothy. It's self-titled, and it's just cool when my little brother is kind of taking the place of the college kids in my life, he's at Fuller right now, and he's on the cusp, like I was always around college kids, and they were always telling me what the newest thing is. And it's fun to see my little brother, who, 17 years younger, he's coming of age, and now he's on the cusp. And actually his bride is the one who discovered this band. It's Dorothy. Highly recommend it. It's a really good record.
What's the sound like? What are they doing?
It's It's like classic rock. It's I don't know if you've heard the Dead Weather. It's one of the Jack White's bands. They sound kind of like that, but it's a little more danceable. It's just this classic rock. I like that the pendulum is swinging kind of used to be, and I think we've had discussions about this. If you were a female singer, you had to do something weird or crazy, eat a batter, like paint Cambodia's like outline, tattoo it on your face or something. Like they would always, I think it started, like Stevie Nicks, like I don't know, you always have to have like a weird, like kind of fruity vibe. I don't know, but she's just a straight up like Heart, like the classic rock band Heart, just
okay,
great vocals, kind of have a Zeppelin feel, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And it's two-way tight. And then Dustin Kensrue just came out with a cover album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous.
What's he covering?
He covers all kinds of stuff. His cover of "Creep" by Radiohead is ridiculous, and it's made doubly good, because I saw the tour that he went and did this. So he recorded them live, and so he was going around, and it was just him and an acoustic guitar. He covers "Creep" by and Radiohead, and then he also covers and what I love covers. Don't you love covers? Because it unlocks whole different worlds. But he uncovers "Buzzcut" by Lorde, and that turned me on to that album. Lorde, that was a wicked underrated album. I don't know if you got to listen to that album at all.
I've heard a little bit of it. I don't know her. I can't get into her stuff all the way, but
the Buzzcut is my doorway. It's interesting. The covers are often doorways into bands for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Pearl Jam. I kind of grew up. This is weird. Some people might want to kill me after I say this, but I grew up hating the Beatles because my father had grown up, in the 60s, and he was a military guy, and he kind of associated with the Beatles with the, the hippie movement and anti-America, and lumped all that stuff in together. So I grew up under the house, under the roof of, kind of not liking the Beatles. My dad was different kind of bird. He liked musicals and like classical music, but I didn't really follow that vein. But I did follow him on his vein of hating the Beatles, and plus it got me a lot of arguments, and that's fun. When you're growing up and you're arguing. But Pearl Jam covering "I've Got a Feeling," that single-handedly got me into the Beatles. Anyway,
that's fascinating, man. That's something we should explore sometime, is why covers are so interesting to us. Like, because it's not just us. I mean, culturally, they're a huge deal. I've got a buddy who lives in Nashville who's releasing a covers album this summer, and he did a series of covers of 90s songs, like a 10-week series or 9-week series, and he started in 90, so he just picked a song from 1990, a song from 1991, song and just went in order.
Such a cool idea.
It's a really cool idea, and he's a ridiculous musician, so they were all really good. But it is weird. Like, there's something about not having to learn the song again. Like, there's an element of similarity but difference. Like, there's this piece.
Yeah.
Do you ever read Chesterton talk in Orthodoxy?
Yeah.
He has this, he opens the book in the introduction with this idea that the happiest guy in the world would be the person who left home and thinks he's discovered a new land only to find out that it's his home again. And I think covers are sort of like that. Like, you're like, oh, I've got this brand new song I like, only to find out, wait, this is a song I already knew before, but it's different now. And there's a welcoming to that. That's, I don't know, there's something to that that's really cool. I love covers, and especially when a cover, here's another piece to it. The music we grew up with in the 90s, the music and the lyrics almost never fit together. So covers, in a lot of ways, people who are covering 90s stuff, in my head, it's always like, oh man, this is so much more like what the lyrics are than the original song we listened to. I don't know why they were so disconnected, but they seem to be.
That's so true. Yeah, I think you should tell your friend, because if I were talented, this is what I would do. I would do, because there's 52 weeks in a year. Is that right?
Yeah.
And there's 52 states, right?
No. Come on, man.
Aren't there 51? How many states are there?
There's 50.
No, there's 50 plus Alaska or something, and Cuba.
No. This is fantastic. I'm glad it's being recorded. There are 50 states, and there's also Puerto Rico and Guam and whatever, but those aren't states.
Because we don't let them vote. Is that we own them?
Actually, I do think we do let them vote, but it's they're their own countries.
All right, we anyway, you do well. Then 50 then, and your buddy's name, and then covers America, and then he goes to those 50 states, and does a show, and they're recorded, and he covers a band from that state.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And maybe their album. If I was talented, that's what I would do. He goes to Detroit, and he could cover a whole Kiss album or something like that.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah.
I like that.
Texas. Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah. Do you have
What's your buddy's name?
Mark Martel.
Mark Martel covers America.
That's pretty good.
Wouldn't that be? That's a cool. And then
I'm going to send him this podcast and tell him listen to our talk about covers and
release 50. And I think that's a really deep and meaningful point. Is that we love the familiar but recreated. Look through a different lens, and
it's like it gives you a chance to rediscover something that you already like. Because I like covers to songs I already know largely.
Yeah.
Like I loved Ryan Adams' cover of the Taylor Swift album.
Yeah, that's such a wise idea.
Yeah, I really like that.
And that touches on, but I don't like cover bands. Can we get into that?
You're right. That's a weird problem.
And my one negative is I think every cover album should have a Dylan song on it.
Just as a rule.
I think
probably right. Well, I think Bob Dylan is the example of we didn't really love the original all that often, but but the cover song opens up the original because they're all better than almost every Bob Dylan cover is better than the original.
It's true, and it's because of the brilliance of the writing. It's Dylan's just a simple, brilliant writer.
Yeah, he's ridiculous.
Whose voice sometimes brings the wrong edge.
Yeah, it doesn't always do what you want it to do.
Yeah, Knocking on Heaven's Door, G&R, dude.
Yeah, that's a good cover.
That's a wicked good cover. What's your all-time favorite cover?
Oh, there is a cover of a song. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up because I'm not gonna get the guy's name right. There's a guy who covers 500 miles, like I would walk 500 miles.
Yeah.
He does this like really soft, kind of emotional cover of that song, and it's brilliant. So it sounds like a love song instead of like a weird marching song or something. I really like that one.
Is it Luca Bloom?
No, it's man, I don't have almost anything by him because I don't even know if he's released an entire album ever, but that one is really good. All
right.
I'll look it up. I'll check it out now. I'm looking it up. The other is I've got a buddy named Joe who is at Duke right now, but he's also a musician, and he has he worked on a cover of Hey Jealousy that I really like because it's Hey Jealousy is a textbook version of like it just doesn't match when you hear the lyrics of that song.
Yeah.
And the music is so catchy and sounds like the beginning of a 90s sitcom, but the lyrics are way darker than that.
Wow, that's good. I think my two. I think because you gave me two, I'm giving two. I think I've Got a Feeling by Pearl Jam covering the Beatles.
All right.
That's obviously, I think that's tie up there. And then I think Ryan Adams covering that Oasis song.
Wonderwall.
Yeah, Wonderwall. That's a really good cover.
Hey, so I'll say so the guy's name is Blake Stratton.
Okay, Blake Stratton.
Yep. That's
And Dustin Kendrew's album is called Thoughts That Float on a Different Blood.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. I remembered another one that I really love.
Well, you can't say it.
What? Come on, man.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Yeah, you run this thing.
Yeah.
You can say anything you want.
Peter Gabriel released a covers album where he took song like every song on that is ridiculous, but his song "The Book of Love" is so good. His cover of that, and like almost every song on there is better than the original because he does them with like orchestras and it's amazing. I would highly.
I love when artists get better with age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like like Johnny Cash.
It should happen, right?
And Peter Gabriel, the guy from Men at Work, blows me away.
Yeah.
Whatever that guy's name. Yeah, Colin. Yeah, it's because when it goes the other way, it's such a tragedy. Yeah, yes. Rod Stewart. There wasn't a cooler human on the face of the planet than Rod Stewart when he was in the Faces. But that's then true. Look at him now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous is exactly the right word.
Yeah. It's a mockery. Yeah, anyway. Anywho.
Crazy.
Sorry, Rod. Are you, I think it's you on your number 2 or 3 or something. Yeah.
All right. I'm on number 3, I think. You've done 2, right?
I think that's true.
All right. So this is I'm not real sure. This is a quick one, but Batman versus Superman. I have not seen the movie. I probably won't see the movie. But I love it. I love it when critics all go one way and everybody else goes the other way. Like that movie is just being bashed everywhere I've read. Everything I've read about it is terrible, and everybody I know who's seen it is like, "Oh, it's really good." I don't know.
Really?
I don't know the disconnect. I don't know what's causing it. It's just I love that weird problem that happens when the guys who get paid to watch movies are like, "This movie's terrible," and the guys who pay to watch the movie are like, "Oh, this is great." I
do too. That makes me want to see it, though.
I know, me too, but I probably won't. But it is one of those like, it's like both of my boys have seen it, and I've got a couple of college guys who have seen it who are like, "Oh yeah, you should totally watch it." And I was like, "What?" But
my wife and I, when we were it's funny. This is it's 15 years today. This is when my wife and I got married.
Crazy.
It's our anniversary. Go fight, win. But then we went. And we honeymooned because we didn't have any money. We honeymooned in Vail because we had a rich uncle. Malia has a rich uncle in Vail. It's awesome. He's really giving, just an amazing guy. But then we had a friend at Boulder, and our friend at Boulder said, "Hey, you got to drive over here, and I got a gift certificate for one of these restaurants in Vail." So we drove over to Boulder to meet with our buddy Aaron, and Aaron gave us this gift certificate. But then he said, Siskel or Ebert, which one of those, the bigger one?
Yeah.
Whichever one that one was.
I don't remember what Ebert. I think it's still alive, right? The other one is not.
I think so. So it's Ebert. I think the bigger one. Hey, whatever one, the bigger one, but he used to be the big one, but then he lost a bunch of weight.
He lost a bunch of weight, so it's very confusing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then he went to Boulder. And so every year around this time, he goes back and he reviews a film. And it'll play a little bit of it, and then he'll pause it, and then he'll talk about it, and then he plays a little more.
Yeah.
And it's a couple night event because it takes him, like an hour or two, like to go, for like 30 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the movie he was doing this with, and we went to go see it, was Fight Club. And the reason he was doing it is because it was just that reason. It was the same. All the critics hated Fight Club.
Yeah.
And he said it's actually the movie that he got the most hate mail because he didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was so interesting just because he knew the film inside and out, because it was interesting. He's pausing and stuff like that. And the reason he gave it a thumbs down was for philosophical reasons. He said it's the only film that he couldn't give it a thumbs up simply because of the main theme, it was propelling.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was an interesting thing. But I too like, I love that movie Fight Club, and it's because of that, because everybody, because all the critics hated it. Like, and same with it's so weird that every, like Big Lebowski, I think every critic hated that one.
Yeah, it is strange how some of those things catch still though, right? Like, and like this Batman versus Superman thing, what's funny about it is it accidentally puts you on the side of rooting for the movie that cost $300 million to make. It's like, it's not but it feels like an underdog because everybody else hates it. And it's like, oh, well, it can't be that bad. And then it's like, then you go in with the expectation of this might be the worst movie I've ever seen. And then it's not. And it's like, oh, this is good. But it's really funny to me. Yeah. So it does make you wonder, like, is it just that bad a movie? And it certainly seems like it could be. Why do people like it if it's that bad of a movie? And is it just the action? Is it just the heroes? What is it? And then, yeah, is there like a third thing going on, like the philosophical piece? Like, is there something happening in the movie that the audiences are in front of the critics on, like that?
Yeah.
That they catch it, and the critics get hung up on the actual details of the movie and how it's put together. But the people who don't get hung up on that are catching something that you miss when you look at the details. I don't know.
You're making me want to see this movie.
I know. I'm kind of intrigued to see it now, to see it, what the thing is. But I do appreciate. I just love that piece. Like, I love it when the audience says, "Yeah, we really don't care what you say at all. We're gonna do what we're gonna do."
What's the most surprising film that you like? That most people hate.
That most people hate. Oh man, I don't even know. That's a good question. I'm trying to think of a movie I saw that I know for sure critics didn't like that I really enjoyed.
Mine's really easy. Waterworld. I love that film. I'm the only person on this planet that loves that world. That loves that film.
Oh man, that's funny. That's really funny. Yeah, you are the only person on this planet that loves Waterworld.
It's that or Soldier. There was a Kurt Russell movie called Soldier. I love that film.
Oh man, so there's one from my childhood that I really liked called oh man, I'm gonna get it wrong now. The Last Dragon, I think, and it's like a blaxploitation film, but it's set in Harlem in the late 70s, early 80s, and the main character is Bruce Leroy, and he's a kung fu master. He wants to become a kung fu master, but it all takes place in Harlem, and it's really like it's a terrible movie that's just like super close to my heart still. Like, I was like, oh, and it's been out for like 30 or 40 years now, and I don't know how I got my hands on it in the first place, but I must have watched that movie 200 times when I was a kid. And it shaped all kinds of things about me. But yeah, it's like once in a while you'll see somebody reference it now, and I'm like, wow, somebody else knows that movie. But there's zero chance that did well with the critics. Like, there's just no way. That movie is awful.
That's one of my favorite things about you. When you're off the map, you are so so far off the map. Like where's that guy from? That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's probably my best. I like dumb movies sometimes too. I'm not a great gauge on that stuff, but that's funny.
That's good.
I love Lebowski.
Now what's yeah. Are we on 3? I think I just did
my third one.
Okay, I'll do my third.
Yeah.
My third is a Dr. Seuss book called On Beyond Zebra. Have you ever read that book?
Yeah, I think so.
It was introduced to me by Conwisher, Rich Conwisher. He said, he was introduced by either Tim Toole or Vic Pence, one of his mentors, and he's like, "This is the best." Vic Pence or Tim Toole told Rich, "This is like the best book on the kingdom of God that's out there," and it's this. Oops, sorry about that. It's wicked good. It's about Dr. Seuss talking this boy through the truth that some people end their alphabet with the letter Z, but there are if you let your imagination go, there are letters beyond Z, and they make up this alphabet that's beyond Z, that correlates with this world that's on beyond zebra, on beyond Z. And it's a really interesting. You check it out from the library and read it to your youngest, and it's really cool. I really liked it. I do a we do a service at a retirement facility, and I like to do something different than what I do on Sunday mornings, because I go Sunday mornings, and then I go over there about 1 or 1:45, and I lead this little service, and I like to mix it up. And I pulled that book off the shelf and just was like, hey, let's read, because first Sunday of the month I do communion, so I just wanted some filler. But as I was reading it, it struck me as that's one of my favorite attributes of following Jesus into this kingdom of God, and letting him reign in different parts of my life and my being, is you get to see things. I think two people could be looking at the same exact thing, and the one that has let Jesus paint his vision, his or her vision, I think sees they can see a totally different reality and a different world and a different life. I love that imagination side of the kingdom of God. It blows boundaries away, like. Anyway,
Yeah,
I like the uncontainableness.
Yeah, it's expansive, right? Like,
yeah, and undefinable. Like it's I'm just making up words now.
You really are, but I love the sense of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look it up. The Dr. Seuss is On Beyond Zebra. Conwisher mentioned it in a sermon, and I happened to be leading. I was a high school associate at St. Andrews at the time, and I was leading a bunch of guys in this Bible study, and these guys bought the book for me, which was cool.
That is cool.
Yeah,
I like that one. All right, my number 4, right?
Yep.
All right, so tomorrow I get to preach to or teach for the San Antonio Christian Lawyers Association.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's kind of fun. So I get a fancy lunch out of it. So I'm excited about that, and I was asked to do it by a friend, and I'm looking forward to it. But in kind of preparing for it, the theme I've been given is Easter thoughts for lawyers. And, yeah,
awesome.
Yeah. So I was like, oh man, and I'm trying to figure out exactly sort of what to do with it. But one of the things it's done is I've kind of gone back over Politics of Jesus by John Howard Yoder.
Oh yeah,
and man, that book is gold. I know that, and it's helped. It's kind of connected to me or for me in different ways throughout kind of my adult life. But it's like every time I go back through it, he's just on point about the gospel, and is really and he knows his ability to kind of critique and name things that you can, like, when I read. So I've read it, I don't know, 6 or 10 times, something like that. And every time I come through it and I catch a critique he makes of somebody else that I didn't even notice the first time. And it's, here's one from this. This is a quote that jumped off the page at me now, because now that I've seen it, I won't be able to unsee it again. But it's, incarnation does not originally mean, as it tends to today in some theologies of history and in some kinds of Anglicans today, that God took all of human nature as it was, put his seal of approval on it, and thereby ratified nature as revelation. The point is just the opposite, that God broke through the borders of man's definition of what is human and gave a new formative definition in Jesus. And it's it's so like he's exactly naming the climate in the Episcopal world that I live in right now.
Yeah.
But he did it 40 years ago. It's that kind of thing, like that, the sort of prescience to be able to kind of name ahead of time what that movement's doing and is going to do is just astonishing. Like, it's so impressive. So
that's excellent.
Yeah. So Politics of Jesus. That's my fourth one. I always
when are you doing Easter Thoughts for Lawyers? Is that later today?
That's tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Do you have any? Because do you have any extra copies of Politics of Jesus by Yoder around?
Like just laying around to give out? No.
Yeah. Oh, that's too bad.
You think I should bring him and give him out?
I think you should bring one, because lawyers. I was in a Bible study with a lawyer, and I had the crazy idea of giving him Calvin's Institutes, because Calvin was a lawyer, and this guy really connected with it, and so they connect with reading, and they connect with, like it's just there. It was like giving him a cup of salvation, or a cup
That's
of
cool.
like furthering him on his walk. So it might, like, and I
It might be worth picking up a couple.
Yeah, it might be worth picking up at least one copy and just asking like a random question at the end to see if like they listened or anything.
I told Josh,
kind of a reward.
I told my oldest son I was going to do it, and I said, "Hey, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to tell him." He goes, "Well, you should tell him that it's good news because now all their lies are forgiven."
That's got to make it in there too. That's the quote of the century right there. That's awesome. That's straight up true. That's so good. I haven't even read Politics of Jesus. I know that probably offends you, but I should pick up a copy
100 times. So
yeah, I think you've even mailed it to me, but
yeah,
I don't know. We'll pray about that.
That may be accurate.
Yeah, that may or may not be true.
That's 100% true.
That's cool. That's cool that you're bringing the Easter to the lawyers, and that's such a great quote. I think I love it when people get close to God, and as a result, they get insider information, and I think it blows people away. I think there's theologians like that.
Yeah,
that are that's such a gift. That's such a gift. Yeah, I think. I can't.
That reminds me, there's a guy up by kind of near where you are. I think I have to look up where he actually is. But he's in Michigan, and he's like northern Michigan, I think. His name is John Nugent. You should look this guy up. I can't remember. I don't remember where he teaches exactly, but he wrote a book on John Howard Yoder's use of the Old Testament, and it's really, really helpful. But he also he just put out an article in the last day or two about how about sort of navigating a way for Christians to think about war. That's really, really helpful because he's sort of deconstructing some of the categories that we've had. John Nugent, he's really good. But
I'll look him up.
If he's near you, it'd be worth. I could let me know. I can get you in touch with him if he's near you. I'm not sure how close he is, but
is he in the same vein as Kavanaugh?
Yeah, sort of. He's not Catholic though. So Kavanaugh's Catholic.
But the last time you just recommended something on war that blew my mind, it was like Kavanaugh guy.
Yeah.
Do you remember he writes there's a little book out there. I forget, you recommended it to me and I read it. And I think it was a compilation of his articles, and there was one of his articles was like, are you willing to kill for your religion? Because you're willing to kill for your freedom.
Right.
And that's what military is about. He just raises a really good question in that article. I was like, whoa, okay.
Yeah, no, Kavanaugh is ridiculous. That's another, William Kavanaugh is amazing. If you have a chance to read him.
But I'll look into Nuge. The Nuge.
Yeah, John Nugent. I'll send you a link later. But yeah.
Is he related to Ted?
You'd have to ask him that question. I did not ask him that question.
Nugent's, I think he's from around here too. I think
he's too, Michigan. He is a Michigan. Yeah.
And now I don't know what my fourth or fifth one is. I think this is my fourth. It was a toss up. I think I'll go with this. I'll go with just the shared victories. I was just reflecting on just the idea that we're not grateful enough. I'm not grateful enough. Like I always blame God, and I love to blame people when things are bad. And I'd say probably about 50-60% of my talking to God is complaining, and I think the victories that I've missed are astounding. Like there's so many victories, there's so many things that I should have been thankful for and grateful for, and it's cool when they're so big you can't ignore them.
Yeah, that is nice.
You know what I mean? Because on last Sunday, the prayer request, we have a woman in our congregation named Linda Fordham. She's been struggling with depression and a heart problem, and they couldn't figure out which one was causing what. And so there were 2 weeks ago, she had a really bad week, and her heart would just speed up. And it was scary, because then she would have to be brought into the hospital, and they would have to stop her heart and slow it down, like stop it and start it, so it would be back on.
Yeah.
And so she had done this a couple times, and it's not good for the heart to do that over and over. So they scheduled a surgery for her last Wednesday. And so it was a prayer request, and I paused on it, and I said, every single congregant, raise your hand, because we're all going to be praying this next Wednesday. And so that was last Wednesday, and the surgery happened later in the afternoon. And then she sat around for 4 hours and in the hospital, because they wanted to whatever.
Yeah.
She called me from where she had just had the operation, and her husband called, and he handed her the phone. Probably, I don't know if that's breaking any rules or anything, but it was like talking to a new creation. It was like talking to a new person. And she's off all the heart meds. And we brought home communion to her on Sunday. She wanted to go, but they said, no, just relax, let your heart be healed, and they went in through the groin region, and they went into the heart.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. They did. And they went in.
Why would you say it on a podcast? You don't need to do that.
No. But this was part of the amazingness. They go in, and so it wasn't really even a surgery. They just go in there, and they go into her heart, and they like through electricity, and the husband, Ernie, he was trying like crazy to get how many watts. how many watts did you use? I mean, like, how many watts are going in there? He was but the doctor didn't know, and maybe he's going to figure out. So, which is kind of disconcerting, but
yeah, it's very disconcerting.
But it was one of those moments where the train stops, and you can almost hear God say, if you don't praise me for this, there's something wrong with you, buddy. Like I was like, and that's like those victories, they're such, they're like manna from heaven to the soul. Like they scratch an itch that nothing else can scratch, like that's
like I'm wired that way, where I need to have wins, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do think sometimes God gives us ones that we just can't miss, and then the rest of the time we're just not paying close enough attention.
Yeah. And so my number 4 is that's what it is.
That's an awesome one, man. That's great.
Just a shared victory.
That's really, really cool. And I'm glad she's doing well. That's super good. All right. My last one is an article that came out in this last week called Bullets and Beatitudes by a priest named Antonio Anderson. And he lives in Nuevo Laredo, which is right across the border. And the article is wrestling with it's just like a firsthand account of his interaction with young Mexican guys who are in the mafia in Mexico.
Yeah.
And the amount of killing and evil that their congregation has seen, and how they've responded to it and are responding to it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful, it's such a beautifully written piece. And it's also, it's the kind of theology that should be written more often. Like it's theology that's rooted and grounded in truth and history and orthodoxy, but it also interacts now with the real questions that we have right now. But it's pastoral in a certain way, right? Like it's wise counsel in a certain way, but it's like, it's just the reality of being able, like being able to experience some of the stuff that they're experiencing and be able to speak truth about who God is and what he's teaching and showing and challenging. It's like, man, it's really good stuff.
I love that too. Yeah, that was pointed. Did Phil email that to you too? Yeah. That's I have it right in front of me, and one of my favorite parts is like on second page in. He says, as the Mexican bishops say, the fundamental root of violence is in the orientation of the heart of every human.
Yeah.
Evil is not what surrounds us, but in the heart, from whence come evil designs. What that, yeah, and I love what you're saying. When did practical theology become a thing? Isn't theology like?
Yeah.
I echo what you just said. More of this needs to be written, simply because this is what it is. You know, this is theology is practical. You know, like you should. Somewhere along the way, theology became a head thing and not an earthy thing.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly throw that away. Like when you're talking theology, I think the proper umbrella is you're talking, you know, your hands are dirty, you know, you're in the mud, and you're mixing God with God's creation, you know, like that's in all else, it falls short of like true theology, in my opinion. That's what I think. That's what I loved about the article. That's what I love about theology. That's what I aspire to, you know. That's why.
Yeah, that's the piece, right? Like it's not that it can't be done outside of that stuff. It's just that it doesn't have any power.
Yeah.
There's no, like, he's got this paragraph: in the poor barrios where I serve, Christ's shocking gospel of love is also the cure. Jesus shocks the world with his witness and teaching against violence.
Oof.
He is no pacifist. He doesn't stick a daisy in the muzzle of your rifle. No, he spatters you with his blood. He does not teach us to run from violence. He teaches us to confront violence by standing firm and offering our other cheek. Like, man,
what a visual.
Yeah.
That's yeah. That you know, like, we should be English major poet people mixing with. That's just beautifully phrased truth, you know?
Yeah, so there's a couple of pieces to this, but one of them is I think we just don't hold our pastors to a high enough standard on this front.
Yeah.
Like, I think, and as somebody who preaches all the time, I think I get away with way less than this all the time.
I think I that's what I was thinking too. I don't hold myself to this standard because that's good.
And now this is an exceptional thing, right? Like he's written an amazing thing that we're probably not going to rise to ever, but I don't know that I even aim at it most of the time, and I know other pastors and preachers don't. Like, it's the idea that they could be writing or preaching beauty as well as sort of modeling it, and that's just really important.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree with you more, brother. This is
I love that.
It was a challenge. I love that one too. That's a great article, and that's a 5 best that I'm glad you brought up, because otherwise it wouldn't have made it. And I don't know. That's good. I think my 5th best, add one because you gave me another one because the Villanova thing. My 5th one, I would say, is Colbert. He was interviewing, I think it was just last night, that the guy who plays Ron on Parks and Rec. What's that guy's name? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Nick Offerman.
Rick Offerman.
No, Nick.
Nick. Nick Offerman. That's that interview was excellent. For several reasons. He was promoting his book Gumption. I want to read that book now. And I like this trend. And the first person that I saw doing it was Khaki back in at Trinity. He is bringing up old English terms. That Offerman is just, he was speaking in thee and thou, and he was like scuttlebutt and scuttlecoot, like he was throwing all these old words around, and it's so ridiculously cool. And I think another thing that made him top, he said his favorite author is Wendell Berry.
Yeah, I've heard him say that before.
And I was just doing cartwheels. I dug that interview. I dig how manners and gumption, and I like that Nick was speaking of a void that was once very full. I think there's a serious, true, there's a danger of, the past is, the grass was greener back then and everything was better and all that stuff. But there is something that we have left behind in our race to become better. And that is to be good, I like that vein, and it's kind of, it has an anti-technology thing to it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Yeah.
I dig that. I just dig it's almost the call of the wild or something. The call of the roots, the call to the roots, because he loves Roosevelt, and he was telling the story about Roosevelt on a camping trip, and some like scalawags, or he used some crazy term, stole his boat, and instead of complaining about it, he built another boat. And then he hunted these guys down, and he tied them up and walked them back into town for a trial. But what? and Offerman's favorite part about it was every night he would sit around the campfire and he would read Anna Karenina as these guys are tied up around the fire. It was just cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
so great.
So
that's a theme that comes up for us a bunch.
Yeah, it does.
Because I was listening to some of the old podcasts, and it's that theme of kind of wanting to return to roots or exploring what it means, like what we've lost in some of the technology and some of our generation and the generation behind us. It's an important theme, I think. It just keeps showing up enough that we need to start kind of really wrestling with that.
Yeah, and one of the last, I kind of dovetailed this into it, but one of the last, I read a biography about Jonathan Edwards, and he asked his wife to make a Bible that every other page was blank so he could journal in it. And ESV has just put one of those out, and that's what I'm digging. I dig that. I dig that call back to the roots. I think it should come up almost every week. I don't know. I feel good about that.
Nice.
Because I think that's what a big part of my call is that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And, there's some of that in listening to records instead of CDs, and there's some of that.
Yeah.
It shows up in a bunch of different places, but
it's true.
It's an important piece.
Yeah, but I think I take it a little too far. Now records aren't even old enough. I'm looking for reel-to-reels. If anybody's got any reel-to-reels,
oh boy,
mail them to me. Because right now I only have one. It's Mahalia Jackson. Boom.
That's cool. Yeah,
it is cool. It is cool. I got a reel-to-reel player like a couple of months ago at a thrift store in Grand Rapids.
Nice.
Yeah.
I don't even know where you would find that stuff.
Yeah, on eBay, it's way overpriced.
Oh yeah, so that's no good.
Yeah, it does have a warm sound. but I'm not kidding myself. It's not as good as records. I think records are still the warmest, you know, like because it's still just a tape.
Yeah.
But it is cooler to look. It's funny because that television show Vinyl.
Yeah.
They're always listening to reel. Have you noticed?
I haven't seen it at all.
Yeah. Well,
even though you highly recommended it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, there's more reel players than record players in that show.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It doesn't make sense because Vinyl, that's the name of the show.
They're making vinyl, man.
I know, but it's just driving me crazy.
All right. I trust you.
I hit you.
All right. Awesome. Always good to talk to you, brother.
That's it.
That's our 5 best. We both did 5.
Boom. All right, that's cool. I'll talk to you next week.
Villanova UNC. We got to talk about this real fast on the way out. How about Jay Wright's response? Have you seen that? The coach for Villanova?
No, I haven't.
It's the most stoic, super cool response ever. He's standing on the sideline. His kid goes up to shoot it on the last shot. And as he lets it go, Jay Wright goes, bang. And that's it. That's his whole response.
Bang.
Yeah, he just knew it was going in. It was like, wow. He didn't like throw his hands up. He didn't really even smile. He just that's what was supposed to happen. It was like, wow, this is amazing. You got to look that up online because it's like an 8 or 12-second clip, and it's just him standing there. The kid shoots it. He goes, bang. And that's it.
That's awesome.
They ran the play. He drew it up, and that's it should work. Why wouldn't it work?
Sometimes the understatement is better than the overstatement. You know.
Yeah. Sometimes not for either one of us, but for other people.
Another way I can say that. No. All right, I'll talk to you next week. I love you.
All right. If you guys like it, subscribe. Let your friends know about it, please. The more, the better.
Booyah.
Booyah. See ya.